are being held today for the first of 8 people killed in this week's Amtrak derailment in Philadelphia. NPR's Joel Rose reports mourners are gathering on Long Island, New York to pay their respects to 20-year-old Justin Zemser.
U.S. Naval Academy midshipman Justin Zemser was on his way home to Queens, New York when he was killed in Tuesday's accident. His mother told reporters that Zemser was, quote, wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Everybody looked up to my son. The National Transportation Safety Board is still trying to figure out why the train accelerated for a full minute before it went off the tracks. Board member Robert Sumwalt said it's not clear whether the speed was increased manually by engineer Brandon Bastian. The last damaged train cars have been removed from the scene. Amtrak is hoping to restore limited service between Philadelphia and New York by Monday. Joel Rose, NPR News, Philadelphia.
Manufacturing activity remains soft through April, but Steve Beckner of Market News International says there are some hopeful signs for May.
The Federal Reserve says industrial production fell in April for a fifth straight month by 0.3%. That was worse than expected, but followed a March upward revision. Much of the weakness was concentrated in mining and utilities. Because of low oil prices, the Fed says weakness in oil and gas drilling has more than accounted for the overall decline in mining this year. Manufacturing output was flat. Although motor vehicle and parts production was up strongly, output of machinery and other goods was soft. A glimmer of hope was revealed by the New York Federal Reserve Bank's Empire State Survey, which found a stronger pace of manufacturing in May. For NPR News, I am Steve Beckner.
Stocks are trading mixed at this hour. The Dow is up 2 points at 18,254. The Nasdaq Composite down 5 points. The S&P 500 up a fraction of a point. This is NPR News.
This is WNYC in New York. I'm David First. The commanding officer of a U.S. Naval Academy midshipman killed in this week's Amtrak derailment says he was a phenomenal young man. Captain Brandy Soublé says Justin Zemser had a quiet strength. Soublé spoke today on Long Island, where Zemser's funeral took place. As we've been hearing on WNYC, the 20-year-old sophomore was traveling from the academy in Annapolis, Maryland, to his home in the Rockaway section of Queens when he was killed in Tuesday's derailment in Philadelphia. He was one of 8 people killed. New York's Attorney General has started a program to ensure transgender individuals have equal access to health care. Eric Schneiderman's office announced the initiative today. Staffers with the Attorney General's Civil Rights Bureau will conduct training sessions at hospitals and medical centers around the state to discuss the best ways to ensure the rights of transgender patients are respected. Schneiderman's office says too many transgender Americans report being harassed or denied care because of their gender identity. The New York City Council is targeting industrial laundry plants that are exploiting workers and creating health risks for the public. A report released yesterday by City Council members and Clean NYC found many industrial plants send insufficiently clean linens, which can carry bacteria and viruses back to hospitals, restaurants, and hotels. The report also found some workers had to sort through linens contaminated with needles and bodily fluids. The city currently has no regulations on large industrial laundries. Taking a look at our weather, 74 degrees right now in Central Park. It will be mostly cloudy this evening as we have a low tonight around 59 degrees.
Support for NPR comes from Frederica and Howard Stevenson, supporting Olin College, which is working to help the next generation of engineers develop the entrepreneurial skills, experience, and mindset to bring technological innovations to market. Learn more at olin.edu.
This is The Takeaway. I'm John Hockenberry. Thanks so much for listening. And today you might say our focus is the beginning of the end of the world blues. Play it, B.B. King. I've been down hard. B.B. King's How Blue Can You Get? We'll say goodbye to B.B. King this hour and note that we can get very blue thinking about the world these days. But we begin in the soft and non-threatening days of early 1979 when B.B. King was in his ripe mid-50s. Cold War seemed to be warming up. Iran was our friend back then. He produced a Passover show for Iranian TV to reassure Jews about the future, just weeks before students would overrun the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and take hostages. There was a big agreement on trade reform, and this tune was the top song. witches and her. Into all this tranquility dropped a low-budget movie. It wasn't a horror movie per se.
In the not-too-distant future, there will be no civilization. There will be no heroes.
It wasn't a political movie, really.
You should see the damage, bronze, huh? Metal damage, brain damage, huh? Hail, it's the bronze. I am a Knight Rider. I'm a fuel-injected suicide machine.
It was Australia's vision of a Wild West carved from the industrial breakdown of civilization. Humans fighting back with any rusty machine they could find. Mad Max. Filmed by a doctor who staged the violence by using his knowledge from treating car crash victims, it had unknown actors, rusty police cars, people named Toe Cutter and Knight Rider, motorcycles, and hacksaws. Mad Max became a cult classic, and it was for decades the world's most profitable film. Director George Miller wanted it to have the feel of a silent film, but unlike the apocalyptic Fritz Lang classic Metropolis, the machines would control nothing. It would be humanity's dependence on machines and what happens when they all break down that would drive this end-of-the-world vision. Mad Max started an end-of-world movie genre that is anything but fringe today, as the latest Mad Max, Fury Road, is released as a big-budget, mainstream studio blockbuster.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Adam Sternberg is the author of the dystopian novels Shovel Ready and Near Enemy. Welcome, Adam.
Hi, thanks for having me.
What did Mad Max begin, do you think, back in the late 70s?
I think it started this fascination we have with exactly what you were talking about, the breakdown of civilization. You know, in the sort of post-atomic age, the idea of a world wiped out was one that I think had really taken grasp of people's imaginations. But Mad Max looked at this idea of what have we built and what would happen if it all falls apart, and that's something that you see repeating again and again to today.
It's really kind of like an end of modernism, because Metropolis was really all about the machines taking over and what we've created mastering us. The Terminator is sort of a throwback in that sense. This is really just about what kind of junk could we put together to survive, and it was immediately plausible to me.
Oh yeah, it's interesting if you look at the dystopian stories that sort of captured people's imagination through the 20th century. There's a real shift from the kind of early dystopias characterized by 1984 and Metropolis, which were about sort of society overgrown and bureaucracy run amok, and totalitarianism and sort of ultimate control. And with Mad Max, you saw a shift toward a dystopian vision that was all about loss of control, societal breakdown, and sort of people having to live by these kind of ancient, primitive survival skills, which I think many of us fear that we've lost touch with.
And now it's almost like a documentary. I mean, we have an intuitive sense that things are fine. We have an intuitive sense that we can't control what we've created, and we do have a sense that we're kind of improvising with junk that's laying around everywhere. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, sure. I mean, that vision of a world where people are fighting over oil and fighting over water, those are the kind of nightmare scenarios that persist to today. And I think it's telling that that movie came out in the late 70s when you did have the OPEC issue, you did have gas rationing in the US, and people started to wake up to the idea that this kind of era of bountiful resources and endless expansion might be coming to an end, or might have consequences that we are all going to have to deal with.
But the mainstream view of OPEC was a conspiratorial one, a kind of trilateral commission behind the scenes controlling all of us. The real vision, the revolutionary vision, was Mad Max, and that's what we have today, that no, nothing can be controlled. We run out of this stuff, and we humans are just running around like rats in the world. How does this influence your art, your literature?
Well, all of those sort of classic 70s dystopias are movies that I grew up with as a kid, and you know, Mad Max was a hugely influential film, and you had all these sort of American movies that came out around the same time, like The Warriors and Escape from New York, which were similar sort of imaginings of a kind of post-civilization civilization.
Planet of the Apes is kind of everything falling apart.
Sure, yeah, Planet of the Apes, and you had these sort of science fiction dystopias like Logan's Run and movies like that. And then also growing up in the sort of 70s and 80s, you were still at the tail end of the Cold War, when the kind of idea of like planetary annihilation was sort of constantly in the back of your mind, even as a kid. And even though we're not as worried, rightly or wrongly, about that anymore, certainly that kind of ambient anxiety persists. It just seems to kind of be transferred from one new threat to another.
Do you think the mainstream quality of this dystopian vision, and it's an overused word now, which is also a sign of the revolution or the apocalypse, whatever you want to say, takes the sting out of the shock value that the original Mad Max has?
I think there's definitely a sense of dystopian fatigue in a way, although clearly these visions have a persistent power because we keep returning to them. I think what's interesting in some of the dystopian visions we see now, as opposed to Mad Max, which really was a kind of hard-scrabble fight for survival, there was no real hope in that movie. It's basically one man kind of avenging his family. It's not like at the end of the movie you think, oh, okay, we're all going to be all right. Whereas now, I think there is an almost kind of fantasy element to a lot of dystopias, because our lives have seemingly become so complex and we've become so reliant on different technologies that we barely understand. There's almost a kind of fantasy of, well, what if all that was stripped away? And we'd get back to the sort of essentials, we'd get back to kind of interpersonal relationships, we'd get back to cooking our own food over fires and making our own clothes. And I do think that the dystopia the edge has been dulled a little bit, because it's less a nightmare as it is a kind of alternate scenario of simplicity that has a sort of appeal to us now, because we feel like things have become so complicated and difficult to understand.
Do you have an emergency kit of any kind at your home?
I do not, and I often think that if there was some sort of planetary apocalypse, I would be perfectly happy to go in the first wave. I don't need to be the last man standing.
Do you think we are in the apocalypse now, that essentially we are living in a time of uncontrol, and that this Mad Max Fury Road is almost a throwback? It's a bit of history. It's not even envisioning the future.
I definitely think it's a bit of social history, and I think it's funny that we're so obsessed with this dystopian vision of societal breakdown and sort of technological breakdown, while we are simultaneously living in something that's very similar to the previous idea of dystopia, of sort of constant surveillance, government overreach. I mean, the kinds of things that the previous generations worried about are the kind of things we're actually facing, and yet we have seemed to have transferred all of our anxieties to a whole new set of circumstances that, in a sense, are probably just a distraction from how dystopian our lives have actually become.
Mad Max, one of its revolutionary visions was there were no presidents giving addresses. There were no trying to calm the nation from the government. The whole head of civilization had been cut off and thrown away. And I think we have that same kind of feeling that we would never look to those people for any reassurance anymore.
Oh, I think that's definitely true. And you often see in these dystopian visions, they've become much more a story of the common person's, experience of the apocalypse, as opposed to the president taking charge and telling everyone what to do. It really comes down to you, your family, and hopefully your broomstick or mag light that's going to, beat back the apocalypse at your door.
Adam Sternberg, author of the novels Shovel Ready and Near Enemy. Thanks so much, Adam.
Thank you.
One of our newest members said this about making the decision to join WNYC.
$5 a month is a small price to pay for programming I enjoy.
You can become a member of WNYC with any contribution that feels right to you. There is no too little or too much. The important thing is that you do it. Isn't it time you became a member?
We sure think it's time you became a member, and I hope you do. My name is Ilya Meritz, a reporter in the WNYC newsroom. It is our spring membership drive, and I'm joined in the studio by WNYC's Bridget Bergen.
Hi, Ilya.
Hey, how's it going? This is the time that we come to you. We only do this a few times a year and remind you how it works with public radio. We have a slightly different model. It's different from pay TV. It's different from your newspaper. It's different from going to the movies. Here's what we do. We broadcast fine audio 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And we ask you to pitch in what you think is appropriate. We ask you to pitch in the right amount that's right for your budget and your listening. And today, it's Friday, we got a little something special going on?
That's right, Ilya. Today is a very special day because it is what we're calling $5 Friday. It's your opportunity to join WNYC to support the radio and programming that you tune into every day and show that this is something you care about, and you're going to put your money where your mouth is, and you're going to do it with this new special membership, $5 Friday. Sustaining members are important because they help WNYC financially remain strong and help us to bring you that accurate, credible information that you value. If you can join us at that amount today, you're going to join a special group of committed listeners who make a difference in our community. $5 makes a big impact when we all do our part. So make your sustaining contribution today. Go to WNYC.org, or you can just call 888-376-9692.
Maybe you've been listening to WNYC for a little while, you haven't become a member yet. Now is your chance. This is our invitation to you. We're making it so easy. It's about the cost of a sandwich, $5 a month, $60 for a year. And when you do become a member at the $5 a month level, we'll throw in the WNYC Sustainer Tote, a very snazzy looking bag.
Right now, more than 100,000 people are walking around the city carrying WNYC tote bags. On the subway, in the elevator, at the grocery store. But if you want to stand out, try something new. The WNYC Sustainer Tote. The new Sustainer Tote by Baggu is a convenient, foldable tote that holds whatever you need. It has a sharp new design and shows the world that your support for WNYC never wavers. Make a small monthly donation to WNYC and select the Sustainer Tote as your thank you gift. And get ready to stand out.
You will stand out when you have the Sustainer Tote over your shoulder, whether you're at the Green Market or on the subway. I urge you on this $5 Friday, if you haven't become a WNYC member yet, find out how easy it is. It only takes about 2 minutes. The number to call is 888-376-9692, or you can go online, check out all our fabulous thank you gifts there at WNYC.org.
It just takes a few moments, and while you're listening now before the weekend starts and things get away from you, take an opportunity to show your support for the programming you care about. We want to get you back to the takeaway as soon as possible, but we know that if this is something that you care about, that you're going to put your money where your mouth is. Give us a call, 888-376-9692, or you can go online and make a security pledge at WNYC.org. If you've already pledged, thank you so much. And if you haven't, consider that $5 sustaining membership. It's just $60 a year. Your money will go so far, and we are so thankful.
Join thousands of New Yorkers.
Support comes from the new Broadway production of Skylight. Carey Mulligan and Bill Nighy reprise their London roles in this collaboration between playwright David Hare and director Stephen Daldry on Broadway through June 21st. Tickets at telecharge.com. Rocket Fuel, which uses artificial intelligence and big data to improve advertising. More at rocketfuel.com.
You're listening to The Takeaway from WNYC and PRI Public Radio International in collaboration with the New York Times and WGBH Boston Public Radio.
Someday there may be wars fought over data. Who gets it? Who can use it? How much of it is available to collect on everyone? Does the NSA need its own army to defend its practices? It probably already has one. But it's not just the NSA. The data trail is unavoidable today. Every time you make an online purchase, swipe a credit card, log onto a website, you leave behind a trail that plays itself out in ways that may not be obvious to you, but are tantalizingly attractive to marketing companies, financial companies, and law enforcement. Can buying a pair of hiking boots with your debit card affect how much you pay for health care? According to Pam Dixon, founder and executive director of the World Privacy Forum, it can. Big data is the name for the aggregation and synchronization of all the data trails that we generate. Data brokers, Dixon says, are already hard at work anticipating our every move in a fast-changing environment where the regulators don't have a chance.
In the past,
privacy laws have sought to protect information from flowing around about us. There's that very famous Supreme Court dissent that says, privacy is essentially the right to be let alone. But now, every time we use our debit and our credit cards, whenever we live our lives, we're leaving behind a trail of digital breadcrumbs that typically and frequently is amassed to either market to us or to do predictive analytics about our behavior, to see what kind of people we may be now or in the future. And one of the things that we've really come to through our research, especially our research in the past 3 years on data brokers, is that we're not going to be able to stop all of the information from flowing. So where does that leave us? I mean, we cannot live in a tinfoil hat city. We just can't. So the other option is to create a new approach to privacy. So that's where we are right now. And basically, the way I like to sum it up is we need the tools and the skills and the right to be able to shape our digital exhaust.
Is this more sophisticated or fundamentally different than the find out your credit score and get rid of?
Thank you. Have a good one.
Systemic way that our privacy is being challenged right now is one that's more difficult to get at. And this is something we talked about, actually we researched for 3 years for our Scoring of America report, and it's the way that all of the small purchases and activities that we do that are digitally recorded add up to create a meaningful profile about us. Let's see, we're a person who buys hiking goods, or we're a person who smokes or doesn't smoke, that sort of thing. It's a network of information, including educational choices and whatnot, that tends to combine to create predictive profiles of us.
Who are data brokers? I mean, could I like knock on their door and find?
Yes, you could. Yeah, certainly the largest data broker in this country is a company by the name of Axiom, and they store a lot of public records data, but they also store a lot of behavioral data that's based off of our purchases and other activities. And actually, everyone can take a look at the kind of information that data brokers have on us by looking at the Axiom website that's called About the Data Portal. And it will tell you what your income is, how many kids you have, the VIN number of your vehicle. It will outline how many dollars you spend online and offline, and a lot of other things about you. So most people don't know that this exists, and it's really worth knowing it exists, because this kind of information can be used, for example, to determine a lot of educational decisions, and it can also be used to help determine what you pay for healthcare.
And this is the Axiom portal?
Yes, it's called About the Data. And actually, one of the impediments is that we don't have a legal right to demand to see these reports and scores and information the way we do with our credit report, and that's what we want to see. If there is one thing that we need in this country, it's we need the right to be able to see what data brokers have on us and to correct it. It's very important.
I mean, what's the strategy for protecting ourselves? Because I think we think of privacy as old people, as a kind of an on-off thing, lights on, lights off. And what you're talking about is much more of being in control of different categories of data.
What happens is that those bits of information can really shape how we are viewed by, for example, healthcare companies, employers, educators. And our strategy is to say, okay, look, you need to look at what you're doing and what you're buying and what information is floating out there about you as much as is possible, and then work to construct a profile that doesn't cause you harm, and also work to understand where that profile is going to intersect with important opportunities in your life. So a very good example of this is there was a health plan that asked a well-known and national data analytics provider to conduct a test to see what of the, I think it was about 1,200 to 1,500 factors or things about people would predict how sick they were or how much they should be charged for healthcare costs. And one of the things that they found, and one of the final factors that they used to determine this, was that what people bought online was enormously predictive of how healthy they were. And this even included if they had purchased hiking goods. So one of the ways to do this is if you are engaging in an activity that is harmful to your health, like smoking, you need to figure out a way to either mask your purchase or to pay cash in that instance. But if you are doing something that society would broadly view as fabulous, go ahead and use your credit and your debit cards. But we do need to consider the impact of what we're doing on our long-term profile, because there are people who are creating one without us really ever knowing about it.
Pam Dixon is founder and executive director of the World Privacy Forum. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
The Takeaway is supported by Squarespace, providing users with tools to create websites for small business or their own personal brand. More information at squarespace.com/takeaway.
Hi, I'm Diane from Plainview, New York.
I'm Jerry from Yorktown Heights.
Hi, I'm Heike from Washington Heights.
I'm Kate from Brooklyn, and I support WNYC because it's a day-to-day part of my husband's and my everyday life, and we want to be a part of WNYC's everyday life.
I support WNYC because it connects me to the world.
It's an island of intelligence and calm reflection in a increasingly turbulent, if not insane, world.
WNYC sustains me, and that's why I'm a sustaining member.
So join me.
Join me.
Join me.
Join me during this WNYC pledge drive.
It is so simple to join thousands of New Yorkers in supporting WNYC. It is the spring membership drive on WNYC. My name is Ilya Meritz, in studio with Bridget Bergen.
Hi, Ilya.
How's it going? This is the time that we come to you. We only do it a few times a year and remind you of the role that WNYC plays in your life and ask you to reflect on that and ask you to make a financial contribution to support this station. And today we have a little bit of a special deal. It is $5 Friday. Bridget, explain how this works.
Well, $5 Friday is an opportunity to be a part of WNYC in the community that we have here by becoming a sustaining member for just $5 a month. $5 might seem like a small contribution, but it goes a long way. And this is your chance to make a difference. So if you can take a minute right now before the weekend starts and become a sustaining member. You do your part to support the news you listen to every day by going to our website, wnyc.org, or you make the quick 2-minute phone call, 888-376-9692. Your contribution will go so far, and we would thank you so very much.
Listeners like you have turned to WNYC as a source for news for 90 years. Think about that, 90 years. Over the decades, the world has grown more complex, but there are some voices that you turn to navigate your way. Think Leonard Lopate, Brooke and Bob, John Hockenberry on The Takeaway this hour, and our own morning favorite, Satirius Johnson.
Some listeners can't imagine starting their day without WNYC. It seems like something out of a bad dream. Satirius Johnson, waking at 3 to arrive at the mic before dawn. Something is wrong. Satirius Johnson finds that the station is closed. There's a note on the sash. Ran out of cash. All the morning people, where will they all begin? All the morning people, to whom will they tune in? Help make sure WNYC is there every morning and all day long. Go to WNYC.org and click on Donate. Satirius Johnson wanders the streets in a daze. He's as pale as a ghost. Nothing to host. Stumbling home now, Satirius crawls into bed to consider his fate. It's not even 8. Ah, look at all the morning people. Ah, look at all the morning people.
Oh, poor Satirius Johnson.
I love that song.
That is very funny, and if that made you smile, if that made you laugh, as you're getting ready to go off into your weekend, take a moment, show your support for WNYC. Remember, it's $5 Friday. You can become a sustaining member for $60 a year. Go to our website, WNYC.org, or call 888-376-9692.
We will thank you with the very snazzy Sustainer tote so you can show off your membership to all the people in your life and all the strangers on the subway. Swing that over your shoulder. All it takes is $5 a month. Think about it, the cost of a sandwich. That is a real New York deal. But this is your chance to get involved. If you have already become a member, thank you so much for your support. If you haven't done it yet, $5 Friday. It's fun. It's easy. 888-376-9692 or click on over to WNYC.org.
Dad, are any of these movies good?
Worst episode ever. I see a lot of films. I love all of them.
Your job is to rate movies on a scale from good to excellent.
It's Friday when we talk about films. Christian Meinzer joins us, culture producer for The Takeaway, co-host of the Movie Date podcast with Rafer Guzman, film critic for Newsday, and co-host of the Movie Date podcast. Welcome, fellows.
Hey.
Hi, John, fellows and girls. Let's take you right to Mad Max Fury Road.
How do you know this place even exists?
I was born there.
Why'd you leave?
I didn't. I was taken as a child. Stolen.
Much bigger than the original Mad Max. Much more fun than the original Mad Max. Rafer?
Yeah, the original Mad Max was a pretty angry film. My favorite of the series is, of course, The Road Warrior. That's the iconic movie to me. This is the first one in 30 years, the first one.